Hey folks, Sunny Guerra here with Campaigns and Elections. I'm joined today by Wilson Zehr, founder and CEO of Zairmail. Zairmail is the fastest and easiest way to send mail, and they provide a full range of printing and mailing services such as postcards, letters, snap packs, at competitive pricing. Wilson, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Sonny. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, anytime, anytime. Wilson, just to start off, as we transition more and more into this sort of digital era, can you tell me why mail is still considered an important medium?
Yes, I can. I mean, it's still a $60 billion industry, and its popularity is based on the fact that it really works. I mean, first of all, it can reach every household and business in America. That's not always true of other kinds of broadcast media or digital media. The second is that it's proactive communication, meaning I don't have to wait for somebody to connect with me. I can reach out and connect with them where they live, where they work, where they spend time. Thirdly, there's precise audience targeting, right? If you wanted to reach, um, middle-aged dentists in New Jersey that have bought a car in the last 6 months, we can find that list. So you can reach out and talk to exactly that audience. It's also built into the American psyche, that people are tuned to checking the mail when they get home every day or when they get to the mailbox. The US Postal Service calls it the mail moment, but a lot of families have built that into their regular process. And so it doesn't feel intrusive in the way some other mediums can. And we can tell that it's effective because the Direct Marketing Association reports that on average, direct mail returns $12 for every dollar invested. And those numbers have remained relatively stable for the last decade anyway.
Got it. Okay. And let's switch over a bit to the different kind of options, that are out there when it comes to utilizing mail. Can you tell me what is the difference between cloud-based hybrid mail and traditional direct mail?
Sure. Yeah, the hybrid mail is this idea that a document starts out digitally, and then we turn it into a physical letter that's actually mailed. And while it's in its digital form, we can move it through the network. We can move it geographically much more rapidly and get it closer to where it needs to go before it's produced. And then, of course, we can prepare it in the ideal form to enter the postal stream. This is hybrid mail is a concept we invented working with the US Postal Service back in 1999. So it seems like quite a while ago now. Since that time, we've just continued to refine the concept. The difference with cloud-based direct mail is we have hybrid or cloud-based hybrid mail. Is we've got hybrid mail based on an internet service, so you can reach that to submit your documents for mailing or printing and mailing anywhere there's a connection to the internet. And in fact, we have a new application now that's a desktop icon where you don't even need to open a browser. You can just drop a letter right on a desktop icon. It'll ask you if you want to upload it or send it. You say send it, it'll take an address and send it right out, just and send out a letter, just as if you were dropping it in a mailbox, but you don't even have to get out of your chair.
And Wilson, you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, you mentioned something about targeting. Can you tell me a bit more about how you use mail to precisely target voter segments?
Sure. So within each region, whether that's city, state, county, whatever, you can usually buy the voter file. So I can buy a file of registered voters along with party affiliation. In addition, I mentioned that the lists are very well developed. So we can also pull additional demographics based on home ownership, presence of children, income, other kinds of information like that. By overlaying that data, we can find registered voters who match our criteria. So just as a way of example, recently we worked on a school bond measure in Union County, Oregon. We were able to go to the county and buy a list of registered voters along with party affiliation. And then the school bond measure was based on a tax assessment for people who own real estate. So then we were able to pull out, property owners within the region and do an overlay on registered voters. And what that gave us the ability to do was to target our message to each audience. So for those folks who were going to, who we wanted to vote for the school bond measure, who wouldn't have an additional property tax assessment, of course, they get one message. And the folks that will pay the actual tax assessment, they get a different message. So we're able to target and tune the messaging based on the specific audience and the specific concerns we think they might have for this issue or campaign. I mean, the same thing can be done for any issue or any candidate. I mean, if you can identify your target audience, or better yet, if you can segment your target audience so that you know the things that each audience that are important to each audience, then tune your message to that smaller audience rather than just trying to carpet bomb an entire area with a message that may not be as relevant to some of the people you're connecting with.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense, especially just in terms of getting the right message to folks without the car bombing, like you just mentioned. Okay, and switching over a bit to the more, I guess, creative side of things. So there's a plethora of formats when it comes to direct mail. How do you select which version to use, aka postcards, letters, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a question that a lot of people struggle with, I think. The in terms of formats, if we were to generalize, as you point out, there are hundreds of different formats, different ways we can do this. But if we generalize, we would tend to think of postcards, self mailers, what we call a snap pack, and a letter. A snap pack is really the technical term is called a pressure sealed mailer. It's basically if you got a rebate or a PIN number from the bank and you peeled off the edges, it's that format. We could provide that as well. So if we think about those four, postcard, self-mailer, snap pack, letter, what we have to ask ourselves first is, how complex is the message? Is the message simple enough that I could communicate it in a couple of lines of text, or even in a very compelling image? Okay. Secondly, is it going to include any personal information that other people wouldn't be allowed to have or shouldn't be allowed to have? So if I have a very simple message with public information or information that's not personalized to the recipient, besides the address, then I could get away with using a postcard. And a postcard is going to be the least expensive solution too, because the Postal Service offers a discount rate for postcards. Discount, postal rate. And in fact, when you think about direct mail, the most expensive part of direct mail on the cost side is postage. So that turns out to be significant. If I have a message that's more complex, or but it still doesn't have necessarily personal information, I may be able to step up to a self mailer. Self mailers, use 1 or 2 sheets of paper, usually folded and tabbed, something like that. So it's still not confidential, and it still gives me a lot. The advantage to a postcard is I get an immediate impression. It's like a little mini billboard. It arrives and people see it, and I'm always going to get that impression. With a self mailer, I get some of that same effect, but some of the information is inside, so I don't get completely the same effect. Now, if at the same time, if I've got a more complex message or I've got confidential information, then I really need it to be in some kind of enclosure. So I need to step up to a snap pack or a letter, something of that nature. Snap pack is a great format for a message that's a little shorter in nature, but I still want to, I could print on the front of it so I can get some awareness, but and at the same time, it's going to look official. It looks like a rebate or or a PIN number or something. So they tend to get opened. So that's a good thing. But if I have a lot of if I have personal information, or if I have a lot of content, a more complex offering, then definitely a letter is usually the way to go. Those 3 formats, a self mailer, a snap pack, and a letter, are about the same cost from a cost standpoint. So at that point, it really becomes, what am I comfortable with? With a postcard, there are three additional choices, and we can decide whether we want it black and white, color one side, or color both sides. Typically, color one side is the most common format for us, most popular, mainly because you need that color on the picture side to make it pop. But on the address side, there's less room for content, and a lot of it's taken up by the address. So some people don't really want to invest in color for the front side. But it works either way. And we also usually provide a UV coating, so it makes it feel a little more substantial, and it resists scuffing in the mail, because the automated postal equipment can scuff up a postcard if we don't prepare it properly. But we have a lot of experience working with those. On the other side, with a letter, the challenge is to get it opened, and so we have different options on the type of envelope, the type of stamp, different messaging on the outside, those kind of things. And if there's any questions about that, we can usually, I mentioned concierge service earlier, we can help our clients work through that and make the right choices to both, pick a format that's going to be cost effective, but is also going to get the right open rates and response rates so that their campaign is successful. The only other big item here is, in terms of format and cost, is what kind of postage we use. And it's not always common knowledge, but there are two kinds of postage: first class mail or marketing mail. When you go into the U.S. Postal Service and you buy a postage stamp, that's first class mail. But if we're processing and submitting mail for you, we can also use something called marketing mail or standard A, which is less expensive, give or take. And you could save it's going to depend how the list sorts down, but on large mailings, it can be substantial, the savings. The thing about first class mail is it's going to be, faster delivered, usually 2 to 3 days anywhere in the continental US, the way we prepare it. You're going to get a return service, so the mail will come back to you if you can't deliver it, so you can update your database. And it has a feel of important or personal communication. With standard A or marketing mail, that's going to be the lowest cost, but usually it takes 7 to 10 days for delivery. It's best effort, so sometimes it's better, sometimes worse. If they can't deliver it, the Postal Service can't deliver it, they'll just recycle it for you. It doesn't come back. And sometimes people associate it with bulk mail or ad mail, so it doesn't have that same kind of feel. The response rates can often be slightly lower, but sometimes the savings in postage makes up for those response rates. So those are the big, the major elements. I would say during campaign season, if I want to get out the vote or I want to get an immediate impact, we're seeing a lot of postcards these days because we get that immediate impact in the mail. But if I really need to analyze an issue, I'm probably going to write a letter and put it in an envelope. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now, honestly, I was a little bit surprised to hear that snap packs and stuff cost similar to a lot of other options, because they feel kind of more secure, like you mentioned, like important stuff like PIN numbers and all that. But okay, fantastic. And Wilson, just want to say big thanks again to you for joining us today, and of course, thank you to Zairmail for sponsoring today's interview. We hope to see you again soon.
Sounds great. Anytime at all, Sonny. Happy to help.